Hello, this is Cam McRae, and you're listening to the NSMB podcast. Today I'm sitting down with Caleb Holonko. If you don't know that name, you should, and you likely will soon. Caleb is one of the rising stars in the world of freeride, and he's taken the North Shore by storm, building some incredible moves that are not only massive in scale, they're also clever, creative, and beautiful to look at. Then he rides them with heaps of style and incredible precision. Caleb's also made a habit of putting new twists on moves others built, with permission from the builders, of course. Caleb hit the train gap made famous by Kenny Smith, but he built up the lip and backflipped the enormous gap over the tracks and absolutely greased it. Similarly, Kenny built a huge step down to a suspended platform, the Rutherford lily pad. Caleb gapped right over the lily pad. It's not all about big moves for Caleb though. He spends countless hours building trails for riders like you and me to ride. He also won the Builders Award at Rampage in 2023, working for Reed Boggs alongside Alan Mandel. Caleb is just 27. He's bright, he's funny, and he's a great lad to hang out with. I'm pretty stoked to be talking with him today, so let's get on with it. Caleb Holonko, welcome to the NSMB podcast and in our glorious podcast studio.
Whistler, BC, looking fine on this Thursday. I really love Crankworks and I love Whistler and stoked to be here. Thanks, Cam.
Well, thanks for making the time. I know you're a busy guy right now. One of the things I'm curious about is what sort of rides you've been on with all the crazy pros have been here. Have you been having some sessions?
Not quite yet. I've kind of been preserving myself for this weekend. We got a bunch of filming to do for Kona. I had some great times with some of my friends doing the SRAM all-day ride on Monday. So we got to do some super sweet down country per se. Not the most extreme downhill riding, but Ryan Howard was out there, a bunch of my friends from California, Isaac Wallen, Ryan McNulty, but not a lot of serious shredding going on quite yet. It's just been pretty casual Crankworks.
As a kid from North Van, who are the riders that you looked up to?
Yeah, kind of that big three of like the, I guess, second generation of super shredders. I guess Thomas, Wade, Gulvich, like those were the super big standouts for me. I kind of missed the, who else was there? There was a bunch of guys before that. What were their names?
Bender. You're probably thinking about Bender.
Bender from North Shore? I don't think so. Like Chris Donahue.
Okay.
And that generation, like I didn't really get involved with that. I only heard like rumors of them doing stuff from other people. But I really looked up to like the Thomases, the Wades and stuff. They were the like on the forefront of media at the time. And it was really, really interesting to just, not be like a super fan, but you always heard about these guys that had done these like amazing things. Like you ride up Frome and you always hear rumors, or like your coach at a mountain bike camp tells you about Wade's shoe going flying after he tries to gap like that huge ravine. So yeah, it was pretty cool to grow up in North Vancouver and just hear about all the crazy stuff that went on in the hills and then slowly discover it as I got to explore the mountains. When
did you first, I know your dad's a mountain biker. When did you first catch the bug for mountain biking? How old were you?
We always rode bikes. I never really thought of it as like you had to go trail riding or jumping. It was all just kind of one big conglomerate of activities that combined into just going out for a ride. I think maybe when I was like 5 or 6, we went to like the Coho Festival at Ambleside, and there was the flow show set up. So that's when I kind of found out about like freestyle, freeride, and that kind of thing. Funny story is, I believe when that happened, I went to go watch it, and my parents wouldn't let me go because somebody was injured. And I believe that was Steve Vanderhook or somebody had broken their collarbone at that event. And so now it's like hilarious to look back on why I didn't get to watch the flow show. But I got to see all the crazy stuff set up, and then some medics or something taking care of somebody, and that was like my first memory of like freestyle mountain biking.
So for those who are unfamiliar with the flow show, Dangerous Dan organized the flow show, and he had a bunch of his buddies that would ride on elevated skinnies and precarious jumps, and they would set it up wherever they went. They went to Russia one time. They would set them up in malls. They did it in Italy, all over the world, and there were sometimes injuries because they were often riding on things 2 inches wide, 18 feet in the air.
Yeah, I really wish that was still going on. I don't think I would like to participate, but like it's good for the scene, and I think it's a skill set that is, really, really niche, and it's pretty cool to see like people be successful at something like that.
Did you, when you were growing up, did you like to, well, when you were first riding anyway, when there were more skinnies on the North Shore, did you like to ride that kind of stuff?
I kind of never got around to like seeing like the circus in its heyday or anything like that. But obviously like there's the Imminator Trail and the assorted ones on Frome. So I think like Pipeline was one of the first trails I ever got to ride, and like that had a lot of woodwork. But oh yeah, Natural High was another one. Like the swivel teeter totter and like the sky bridge and all those features, like those were like huge items to tick off when I was growing up. So it was like super, super cool to be able to, work your way through that trail or that mountain and do all the crazy stuff there. But yeah, it wasn't like, I don't know, I like jumping more than anything than woodwork and skinnies. Like the skinnies are cool and they got their the theatrics and they're entertaining, but once you did a few of them, it kind of you were looking for the next big thrill, and like I don't know, it's hard to find jumps on the shore, but Lutete became like the spot for a long time. Like we would go there every day after school, and you'd get a glimpse of like maybe a Gullovich or something, or you hear a rumor that he did a backflip there, and you kind of lose your mind and be like, oh my god, that's the backflip jump, because the lip was so steep, and like you thought you had to backflip it when you would go off of it because of how steep it was. So yeah, the skinnies are in my blood, but they're definitely not the do all end all of my childhood.
For sure. So stepping back a little bit, I know you grew up for a lot of your life in North Shore, but I don't know, were your parents living on the North Shore when you were born?
Yeah. So I just grew up in Lynn Valley, and then we spent all my summers in Christina Lake, BC. Lots of history out there with Dave Sweatland and Shiloh Freer. Like those guys were huge pioneers of freeride mountain biking back then, and they were really pushing the envelope. So they left a pretty big legacy there, with lots of trails being built, and they had a big boom of building and progression there, and it kind of died off in the 2000s or later 2000s. So unfortunately it got pretty derelict for a while, but that's really where I started to find mountain biking, I believe. Like getting my babysitters that were my parents' friends, like 60-year-old women, to take me mountain biking on double black downhill trails, beating the shit out of them. Unfortunately, like they would come back and their shins are done, their shoulders are partially separated. It was pretty hilarious.
But how old were you when these ladies were taking you mountain biking?
Maybe 10, 11, 12. And like I had a Kona scrap or something at the time, and like I had gotten a full face, so I was like, done the schoolyard jumps and ready to like try myself on trails. So they had jumps, features, skinnies and stuff like that were still standing. And yeah, it was that's kind of where it really happened, I think, was Christina Lake. But I guess I can say that I'm North Vancouverite, but I owe a lot to Christina Lake.
That's really interesting, because a lot of the two main retrospectives about the beginning of freeride mountain biking in BC have focused on the North Shore and Kamloops and the Kootenays. And you had the benefit of growing up on the North Shore and being able to ride there in the off season, and then going to the Kootenays and getting that influence as well.
Yeah, it was super special to be able to like spend that much time in the Kootenays. Although like we were really just in Christina Lake, we never got to go anywhere else just because, I don't know, the family was like, I don't know, how do I say it? It's hard to go other places when you have property in such a beautiful place. Like you always want to spend your time there. And fortunately, like Dave and Shiloh and whatever had left such a legacy around that area that there was bike parks and a bike shop and all that cool stuff for me to explore when I was like, you know, all the way till grade 12. I was just getting after it out there, trying to find old stuff and ride the rad trails.
When was there a moment or a period of time when you were growing up where you sort of realized I might be a little better than other riders my age, or this might be something that I could get really good at?
Yeah, I don't really recall like a certain time or a period where that was happening, but I always like wanted to push my envelope of how far I could jump or, do a table. And there was some friendly competition with the neighborhood kids always. And it was something I'd loved to do always, just 'cause it was an easy way to get around and like go to the candy store and get lost and, go for 7 hours and not call your parents or anything like that and get in some trouble. But I think it started out at the schoolyard jumps or something when I like started taking feet off the pedals by accident. Like they'd slip off and then I'd be doing no footers and somebody would tell me that was like a trick. And then I was like, oh, I can do a trick. That's really cool. So, and then I, found out that there was more dirt jumps around and we'd go there and I'd practice doing no footers or can landers eventually. But yeah, I think maybe when I was like 11 or 12, I figured that like I really enjoyed it and I enjoyed the progression and like the learning aspect of it as long as I was doing it moderately safely. I didn't like doing stuff on sketchy jumps, but there's a lot of those around, so I kind of just fell into the path of doing sketchy stuff on sketchy jumps.
So would you say you're on the more calculated end of the spectrum in terms of somebody who does the kinds of things you do?
I'd like to think so. Like it may not translate in videos or something, but I definitely was putting a lot of thought into stuff, especially once consequences got bigger and like you could potentially break bones and stuff. You were going up and down in the trees. Like there's a lot of stuff to hit in the forest. So once it got to the scale of and speeds in the forest, then it really was like, okay, let's take a step back and like work on your technique. And my dad always told me he was recommended by I think a physiotherapist or something like that, but it was all about the run out because you can do all these crazy jumps and whatever, but crashing on the run out, like it's dangerous. Like you need to someplace to slow down and be safe. So that is rang true for me forever. And fortunately, like with some of the stuff I've done, I've gotten very lucky. But at the same time, like growing up, I always was, pushing the envelope of how good the run out was. And I tried to always mitigate risk.
So there was a time when you started to do jumps more. You found out you could do tricks by accident. You were getting better. Did you, before this recent time when you've been essentially a professional rider, did you have any sponsors? Did anybody approach you about doing stuff before this sort of recent recognition of your talent?
Yeah, I've had a lot of great people follow me throughout my career and like help me along the way. I think I owe a lot to like the local skateboard parks and dirt jumps because I got to, spend a lot of time there and work on riding and having fun with my friends, and older people would roll into town and they'd, see a kid riding the skate park well and give me recommendations to certain places. I owe a lot to Matt Uhas because he was he was the first person to like, give me a free pair of socks. And then that blossomed into like a good relationship, getting like grassroots stuff from like Transition for a year through his shop, and later led to Chrome Egg and all these like just working my way up the sponsorship ladder. But I feel like I've been, riding as a sponsored rider since I was maybe in grade 9. So like 14 or 15, I started getting some free stuff. Reese Wallace helped me out a lot when he was the Chrome Egg team manager. He started giving me old parts and frames, and he was hooked up by RockShox as well. So got my name in there, and it was, it's rang true the saying, it's all about who you know. And, I've really tried not to burn any bridges in my career and, keep relationships healthy and, be polite and professional. But at the same time, it's a difficult and cutthroat world out there. And I'm just super grateful that I've had the support from people who have enjoyed what I do. And I'm just unapologetically myself, and they love that. So thank you.
Yeah, cool. That's awesome. So for those not from the North Shore, Matt Uhas owns North Shore Bike Shop, and is a very talented rider himself, and was also a competitor in our Air Apprentice twice.
That's right.
Yeah. So you seem to be getting a lot of attention for your videos and your building and things, and but you were still a guy working for a living, and so I know you were working as like a heavy duty mechanic. Is that right? On
marine
boats?
Marine mechanic. Yeah.
How was that period for you? Was it frustrating for you to be where you were, or were you happy with the duality of your life? How did it feel at that point?
Yeah, it was always just something. So like out of high school, I played junior hockey because I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life. I was applied and enrolled in business school, and it just didn't feel like it was the right time to go to school. So I played ice hockey for a while and rode bikes and dug jumps in the meantime. And it was, thank my parents for that period of my life. It's like super fortunate and privileged to be able to do that. And just working odd jobs to keep money coming through just so I could like quit that job and then have a nice summer of like riding and going to Crankworks and being a dirtbag. And it was a super, super valuable time in my life to figure out what I wanted to do. And working as a marine mechanic was fantastic. But once I found that I was not progressing in like the technical skills and it got super repetitive, that's when I was kind of yearning for more time on the bike, because I felt that there was like, my time is limited with my health and body and like the willingness to huck yourself off some stuff and accomplish some goals on the bike. So it was there was about a year period where it was really good. And then it kind of started after that year span. I was like really hungry to just spend more time and like tie up loose ends on builds and tricks and clips that I wanted to get. But at no point in time was I like resentful for having to go to work. I have a great work ethic, and I owe a lot of that to my family and uncles and stuff like that. They're super hardworking people. And even if I was still working today, like I would probably have done and still be doing all the stuff I'm doing. It's just like very fortunate scenario that I've come into now where I can ride a bike for a living and it pays the bills, and it doesn't seem real at times. I have to slap myself and like have a nice gratitude talk with myself on how amazing this is.
Wow, that's I mean, I think there are a lot of probably your contemporaries who never had that intermediate period where they were working for a living. Mm-hmm. And that was probably pretty instructive for you.
Yeah, it helped me boil down like what I really care about and what really made me happy. Like a hard day's work makes me super happy. Like I love manual labor and working jobs and stuff like that, and I treat mountain biking the same way. Like I get out there and basically just work shifts on building features or like building out a trail or a project. And having that structure in my life for so long has helped me be able to like structure my mountain bike career in that kind of way and see that I need to be doing stuff that's a bit different and not repetitive, because with the way my brain works, like I don't want to be, hitting buckets on the same landing every day or working on changing oil on the same engines and just, that kind of comparison. Like I always want to be progressing and furthering skill sets and trying new things, and having that like work play balance really helped.
Now, it's interesting talking to riders about sponsors because it's a very opaque world. Mm-hmm. Nobody in hockey, you know how much, the Vancouver Canucks players, you can look up the payroll of everyone, and
minimum salary is $750,000 a year,
and nobody gets that. But in the mountain biking world, I mean, the only person I can think of contemporarily who's talked about it a little bit is Aaron Gwynn.
Right.
So it's kind of an interesting topic to interview about, because there are sort of taboo topics. Like, I'm not going to ask you how much you're getting paid by X and Y sponsors, and
for sure,
and partially because I know you're not going to tell me, and it's, I don't know, maybe it's part of the mystique of the world. But maybe you'd like to talk about the kind of support you get from some of your sponsors, and how that helps you accomplish what you want to accomplish.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my goal is just to be financially stable through mountain biking at the baseline, and not try to live in excess, and just live with what I need. Obviously, there's different sponsorship structures and different kinds of riders who get paid X amount of dollars for X amount of work, and they exchange goods for money. But with my sponsorship, it's basically like 3 reasonably paying sponsors that all chip in X amount of dollars for a yearly salary, and then it breaks down with a couple other sponsors that are doing smaller amounts. So it's not all about like the big ticket sponsorship for me. It's kind of just working with a bunch of brands that want to support me for who I am, and value what I do, and realize that they're investing in positive things that are changing communities, helping people, and creating rad content. And I'm really fortunate to work with some great people that help me do that.
Cool. That's so. Basically, you've found this sweet spot.
Yeah, it took a long time. Like, I never thought that I would be in the scenario where I could, value myself and approach companies for X amount of dollars or something like that. But it's been a long time coming to turn pro per se, but I really needed to mature and learn from people like Jeff, Thomas, Wade, about how to value yourself, and come up with pitches and basically justify why you're worth investing in. Like, a lot of riders, like especially myself as a younger guy, I was core, like, oh, why don't you pay me so much money? Like, you should pay me this much more, or I don't get any money from you. What the hell? Like, I should be making a bunch of money because I'm a really good rider. And learning the ins and outs of what's valuable in the industry, and how to differentiate yourself, and not just be another face in the crowd, is really it takes time, and it takes some wisdom from a lot of other people and outside voices, and not just mountain bike riders, like people that have worked in music or marketing and other aspects of the world, not just mountain biking. So I feel like there's a lot to learn out there from other people that have opinions and experiences that are beyond just this little industry. And I've had a lot of help along the way, but no one's ever held my hand through it. It's always been just, yeah, here, you should, try this, or, change that a little bit, and, lose the core, like, I only ride dirt jumps and that kind of shit.
You mean having 3 local pros who you call friends now must be a huge advantage.
Yeah. And like, growing up, Jeff was the only one I really knew. So he was kind of the one, like,
Jeff Gulovich.
Yeah. He was the only one that like gave me that first advice, and then that helped me like get my foot in the door getting paid. And then later on, after establishing myself more and getting to know Thomas and Wade a bit better, then I would like reach out for some advice on, you know, how to negotiate a contract and how to approach brands with pitches and stuff like that. So it wasn't, there's no like set path as a free rider, at least how I see it. Like you kind of have to figure it out for yourself and how you fit into it and how you want it to go. Yeah.
I know probably more than most riders I can think of. Steve Vanderhook would be, I think, maybe similar in terms of the building ethos. But I remember I can't remember who showed it to me, but I saw your grad photo. And your grad photo in the yearbook, you're holding a shovel. And what else? I can't remember. There's something else about the photo, or you just holding a shovel.
There's a Chromag logo in it.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
That one never made it into the yearbook, but that was they were allowing us to bring a prop for like a fun photo.
Oh, okay.
And I grew up riding dirt jumps, and unfortunately, like the terrain around the public parks wasn't the best for building what I wanted to and what I wanted to achieve with, like, you know, my trail building. So I ended up going into the forest and having to build my own spots, drops, stunts, because I always thought that was like the coolest stuff ever, like seeing Claw at the start of movies, like hammering slats, and like hearing about Rye Claw building stuff in the North Shore, and like that was like super attractive to me in the mountain bike industry, and I thought that was like super cool stuff, was the trail building side of things. So it really helped just to have that in my life as like an outlet outside of ice hockey. It was like my split personality growing up, like rep hockey and then like dirt jumps and trail building. And I wanted to progress, didn't have an area to progress, so I just built my own.
It's an interesting duality there with hockey and mountain biking. Like, did you have any hockey buddies who are mountain bikers, or mountain bikers who are,
None.
Like completely different worlds?
Yeah. It was, there'd be like one friend that would like want to come out and like check out the stuff that I was doing in the woods. And he thought it was cool, but you know, he rode mountain bikes like a few times a year. And I was like fully immersed, like on the bus every day after school. It fortunately went down to the bus loop, and then it changed bus routes and went right to where my jumps were. So I didn't even have to change buses. And that was like my life all through grade 10, 11, 12, was like trying to build stuff so that I could progress riding. And I didn't have any thought about like how it would affect me as like a professional mountain biker. I just thought it was something that people did, and I didn't know a lot of people didn't build.
Interesting. So, but you would film them and get people to take photos. Who helped you out with that stuff?
I guess like some of the kids in high school, they are picking up cameras and wanting to get after it. Like we had Max Berkowitz, super talented individual. He was very instrumental in that stuff because he had the vision behind the camera. A couple guys who had photography skills, and they would come out and help. But there was a lot of help being sponsored through Chromag and Reese to get a bit of exposure just by knowing them and being their grom, to meeting photographers and people that would, you know, want to come out and shoot jumps. So the Chromag crew of like Wink Grant, Nick Tingren, Reese Wallace, like those guys really taught me etiquette and how to build and how to take, you know, marketable photos rather than just like a shitty photo in the woods.
But to begin with, you were just doing it for yourself. You're just doing it
purely just for
because
fun.
You loved it.
Yeah. And like the sponsorship thing was always something I wanted. I like didn't have a lot of money, so I would just like, I found that in order for me to get bikes and parts, I needed to get sponsors and be better because I didn't want to pay for it myself. My dad was super into paying for my ice hockey and stuff, but that was what we did. We could afford ice hockey. That was one part of my life. He would buy me protective gear for mountain biking, but I paid for the bikes, aside from maybe the first bike I got. And that was kind of like my little nest egg. I think it was like a 2009 Kona Stinky was like the nest egg that I started with. But it was it was just pure passion rather than just like trying to get famous. And it still is. Like, I just love building trails, building unique stuff, filming, riding, all the tidbits that come with it. It's I'd still be doing it if I was working at 9 to 5, I'll tell you that.
One of the moves from both photos and videos that for me is one of your most iconic involves turning onto essentially a cliff covered in moss, and it seems enormous. I actually haven't seen it in person.
Mm-hmm.
How do you, what is your process there? Do you have an idea of something you want to find and then go look for it, or do you see something and think, oh, I could do that with it?
Yeah, it's finding something that will shoot in the woods is very difficult because of trees, and like I said earlier, it's all about the run out, and like finding something that has a run out and a landing is super difficult in North Vancouver, especially big stuff. Like, Steve's managed to make a bunch of great stuff. Todd's done huge features in the past. I've done a bunch now. And especially with that one, it's like there's this beautiful rock. Like, it's unbelievable. And it would be a big shame to carve a ride line down this untouched piece of moss. So in that one, it's like, okay, how do I make this work for a photo? How do I pay homage to people that built in the past by building woodwork? And how do I make it moderately new school by making it like a off-camber crazy wall ride? Like, it's that one's really complicated with how I wanted to make it. It was it took like 3 or 4 different trips out there of just like clearing the land, run out-ish area, just to like kind of see what I wanted to do. So I kind of bounced back and forth between like the run in and the landing and the run out to figure out how it was going to ride and how I was going to build it, because it was it's basically a puzzle at the end of the day, and finding that shot or that angle and how you want to look, it's like you have to cater to, I guess I had to cater to Margus, because Margus found that.
Margus Riga.
Yeah. So he had no idea I was going to build that. He thought it was just going to be a straight down rock roll. And I went crazy with it. It took a long time to build, and it's super far away, and don't recommend walking 2 hours in the woods by yourself all the time.
2 hours each way?
Yeah, I think it's like an hour each way. It's not fun. And like a lot of my stuff nowadays is like, it's got to be far out in order to make it worth it, because it'll just get found by people and poached, and there's a good lore around it if you build it that deep out there. But yeah, there's a lot of different factors that play into like starting a mega build like that, or
mega build. How long did it take?
That one was almost 2 years, but like I would work on it like 3 or 4 times for a week, and then I would leave it alone and go do something else. Like, I have a good balance of like legal building with the NSMB and on public trails. I've got private, like illegal loan, whatever. I do like a lot of help out with that stuff. I don't build my own. I like to just consider that my volunteer hours.
Some like maintenance on other people's trails.
Yeah, helping out with the community. And then there's like the free ride side of stuff, and then there's the dirt jump side of stuff. So there's like 5 different categories almost of like building I do. And it's hard to find balance, and big features take so long. So you sometimes have to sacrifice like some community days to go just suffer alone. And it's hard to convince people to come build with you. Like, I get help from a few friends every now and then on this stuff, but a lot of it is just by myself suffering, but enjoying every single second of it because it's such a cool process.
How many hours do you think? So does that move have a name? What do you call it?
I called it the Raptor roll because Raptor Riga is Margus's alter ego.
Yeah.
And then we've got, he's got, it kind of looks like a big raptor's skull when you look at it from the side. It's got this super, super cool shape. And that's what I named that one.
So how many hours went into that?
I could not tell you. Like
Really?
well over 100. Like,
Wow. And what percentage of that was the woodwork?
I think I did the woodwork in like 2 days. It's all just leaning against itself on the rock. Like I'm not out there putting like drilling holes in the rocks and like hammer drilling it in. Like there's no point in that, just because it's meant for a couple hits and that's it. So kind of a quick and dirty on that, but like the landing and stuff, in order to keep like the forest pristine around that zone where the shot wants to be, you got to go get like dirt from other places, and unfortunately that's like across the ravine from that.
God.
And it's like 20 meter or like 10 meter elevation gain coming across, and I did it in the summer too, so you're just like hiking buckets. Like I'd put trail running shoes on and like hustle my ass out there in like 30-degree heat, do 50 buckets and then leave. And I think I did that like 9 times or something in order to like fill up the tranny. It's crazy. It's like pretty psychotic when you start like boiling it down and you're like, okay, like am I really that nuts? And you kind of just forget about it because you're having so much fun, and like you put a podcast on and go to work. It's not a big deal. But, fortunately I'm strong enough and stubborn enough to carry on putting buckets on a landing for that long.
What I'm curious about where you see the trajectory of your career, because you're a young guy. How old are you now?
27.
27. So you've got lots of prime years to go. It seems like most of your mountain biking career has been organic, that you've gone from one thing to the next and you've progressed, and it's sort of expanded based on what you've done before.
For sure.
Do you think about where you'd like to be and what you have to do to get to where you want to be, or are you content with this organic progression?
Yeah, I feel like I never want to force anything. Like a lot of stuff nowadays, like especially like Red Bull Rampage, like you have to go to the event sites and submit a video of you basically riding Red Bull Rampage. Like that's how you get in, plain and simple. And it's like super cool to do that and all, but like that seems super forced to me and foreign. Like I don't necessarily want to go huck my stuff in the desert off stuff that people have done before and done way bigger tricks and stuff like that. It's super cool and gnarly, but I don't feel like that's like a door that just like opens. I've always like had the open mindset of being in the right place at the right time. Like stuff will happen just by you being there. But yeah, with like the trajectory of the career right now, everything's happened so naturally and opportunities present themselves, and I don't ever slam a door or close a door on something. It's always left open that I can come back to it. And if I see like a business opportunity or opportunity to do something like very unique, I would way rather seize those and come back to a big huck or something like that. Like I get that I'm 27 and I'm super young, but like this shit is like fucking dangerous, and the consequences are massive. And I got chin checked last year with a dislocated hip and broken pelvis, and that really just like opened my eyes to how sketchy and gnarly stuff can get out in the woods. So I feel like there's plenty of room to do different things, unique things, inspiring things, community projects, whatnot, over top of just hucking meat. And expanding like my portfolio as a rider is super, super fun, and getting those new experiences, trying new things, and just learning along the way is something that I would prioritize over a backflip off a cliff.
So I know you spent a lot of time at Rampage. You've done a lot of digging there. Did you guys win the award for the best build crew last year, as I recall?
Yeah, myself and Alan Mandel, great friend of mine, fantastic human being. he's been down there for almost 10 rampages. So I've been lucky enough to build with him just the last 2 years. I've done 2 years on different teams, but he's like a god amongst men when it comes to trail building, and we're pretty much on the same wavelength all the time. And we were fortunate enough to have that opportunity given to us last year where we could go down there and build on top of the line that we'd previously built. And so we had to basically fill in gaps of, space on the mountain that were like a little bit weak. And although we didn't get like a crazy run we had a crazy run with Reed at the helm. We didn't get scored necessarily super high or super successful. Like, it's still a great run, but we won that Digger Award. And that was like definitely a cherry on top to like going down there for so many years and being able to, come home with some hardware and like be etched into that like Rampage history book, even though it's just the building. It's, it means a lot as just like a rider, trail builder, and as like a fan of the sport.
So you're obviously very interested and invested in Rampage, but you have this reluctance to follow the plan that they would like you to follow to get into it. But I'm not sure. Do you aspire to ride at Rampage?
I think it would be a very like, I'd be honored to attend the event. It would be like super, super cool to be able to go down there and do my thing as a rider. But I feel like there's way more to life than Rampage, although it is like the Super Bowl of our sport. I've always like thought of myself more as a mountain biker than a free rider. I love going for pedals and trail riding and single track. The free riding is definitely a passion, but the free riding is something that is super, super marketable in the sense that you get the viral views, you get the big clicks, you get the YouTube video, and it's all fine and dandy. But, I was explained from Matthew Duppel many years ago that in order to become a professional rider, I needed to not focus solely on Rampage, because a brand is, especially a smaller brand, their bread and butter is selling $500 bikes. And if some father sees this guy hocking off cliffs and crashing, and Red Bull Rampage is this gnarly event, he doesn't want to get his daughter into mountain biking or something. So I've always just had this opinion that I can let that door open for me if they want me to be there. Like, it would be super, super, super cool. But forcing that upon myself and putting myself under that stress has never really been my priority. I've always wanted to just be doing unique stuff and stuff that I value. And it's not like any disrespect to the event or the process or whatever, but it's just not my forte to go hike water into the desert and flip step downs that have been built by people in the past.
So,
but it would be super cool to do that because it's freaking badass.
So if it happens, you would probably accept the invitation?
Yeah, for sure. If it would happen, like, I'd be there in a heartbeat. I'd be down there for a month beforehand, like riding, going crazy, like fully committed to the process again. But in the meantime, there's a lot of cool stuff you can do in October other than Rampage.
So like, if it doesn't happen, you're okay too.
Absolutely. It's I definitely felt, kind of gutted last year when I didn't get in after all the momentum I'd had and the years I spent digging there. And, seeing like the young kids come up and get invites is like freaking awesome. There's no salt or anything from me. It's like, oh, sweet. Like they're in. This is so cool. I'm a fan. But if we were to like go back to last year, I think it would be like, that would have been my year to get in. Like, if I get in this year, it's because of the digging and the dedication to the event, I think. But I find it really hard to like one up myself locally. Like, if I'm going to do something here, I got to build it again. I got to go out and it takes 2 years to build a freaking landing or something. So yeah, I would not be upset if I didn't get to go. But it's definitely a cool thing to do.
It's interesting because it's certainly an event that can change the trajectories of people's careers for better or worse, both often. And you're putting so much into one event, and the consequences are enormous.
The consequences are enormous. The payout's enormous. Like, the dedication to that craft is enormous. Like, you have to be like on it if you're going to be there doing tricks and pushing that envelope and like riding big stuff. It's a completely different game to like riding in the bike park or something like that. So the utmost respect to the people that do it. It's absolutely crazy. And I'm so infatuated and enthralled that like I get to be there and dig every year. And it's like, it's just something that I've like wanted to do forever. And I got the opportunity to do it. And then basically told myself that every time I get the opportunity, I'll go. May that be digging or riding, Sherpaing water up and down the hill for them, getting lunches. Like, I'm just such a fan that I want to be there.
Are there some particular moves or runs or riders that are particularly memorable for you over the years of Rampage?
Yeah, well, scratch the surface. We just go back to last year with Cam Zink and Kyle Strait battling 2 years through a line, hitting the big icon sender without the sender. Like, that's crazy to me. There's like Talus's performance last year of like just showing up as a rookie and, you know, just putting down a flawless run. Like, so cool. But like the Bretts and the Brandons, the Vinny T's, the Thomas Janons, like every single person there is like memorable to me because they've all done this crazy and defeated this monster that is Red Bull Rampage. It's not to be taken lightly. There's like, yeah, you don't know until you go. Like, it's huge. And like everything is trying to kill you.
I remember the first time I went, before I saw anyone ride, and I was just walking around and looking at it, and I was terrified.
It makes you sick.
Yeah.
Like, you're physically ill watching people ride it during the event. Like, you're obviously gassed up and super stoked to watch, but like, you know these people personally now, and you know what they have at stake and what they're putting themselves through, and a lot of the time you built the shit that they're hucking themselves off of, and like, you could basically end somebody's life with that event, or you could make it the best life ever. It's like the consequences, like you said, are enormous. So I'm all for, you know, going down and digging, riding, whatever, but just the respect that you have to have for that event is next level.
Do you do, are there other competitions that you take part in? Like more local sort of free ride, dirt jump events at bike parks or something?
I grew up doing like the slopestyle events because that was like a fun way to get noticed and get sponsors. And I really liked doing tricks back then and still do. But there's not too many events nowadays. I kind of just stick to the media side of stuff and productions and community events. But like, yeah, there's the Lutet Jump Buddies put on like their Jump the Cheeseburger event. And it's just so fun to watch like kids be super stoked on riding jumps and be a part of that. Like, it's super contagious and gets me fired up to see so many smiling faces at a community spot.
You touched on this, and I've seen you working. I've seen the work you've done on local trails. Can you tell me how that started and how you started sort of working on trails, particularly the exit of Boogie Nights looked like an enormous amount of work. How did that come about?
I guess through North Shore Bike Shop and Matt Uhas. He was kind of one of the first to get me into building. And then Kevin Landry and Pat Podolsky and Andrew Tate had brought me out to help build on some Freeride features and work on the original reroute on Floppy Bunny way back in the day. So that's kind of where that started, and just slowly had honed my skills doing dirt jumps and stuff like that. And I needed a job at one point, and the NSMBA lead, Joe, reached out and asked if I wanted to come build trail with them for a while. So I did that. And ulterior motive to that was to get the Boogie Nights permit, because I am the jump guy, and I don't think there's not much of a better fit out there for that kind of trail and what it could be and wants to be. So I guess through the NSMBA, I've got that permit, and now it's just like I want to upgrade that trail and make it like the best it can be, with it being like progressive and moderately, it's super difficult. It's not an easy jump trail. It's not a run-of-the-mill cookie cutter A-line. So that's how I kind of got into that.
Speaking of A-line, now that you're up here at the Whistler Bike Park, what do you like to hit in the park?
I really like the tech trails. They're super, super nasty and blown out, and they don't get much more raw. Like it's like riding the shore without any dirt or like random hazards of like sticks and stuff like that, because so many people ride. I do love like the Dirt Merchant A-line lap. Like you can't really beat that for like a jump lap. But I love like the In Deeps, the Fat Crabat, the Original Sin. I love Goats Gully. It's just fun to like, see how slow you can ride down a chute or something like that, or like, take a more heinous line and see how difficult you can make something that's not difficult. It's a pretty huge bike park, and a lot of it is very similar to itself in the aspect of like repetitive corners, and it's super fun to strap a tire, but all in all, like picking your way down a very difficult trail is something that I find very rewarding, rather than just like party laps with your friends.
That's
but I can't knock that. I do that all the time.
That's interesting because I think a lot of the riders who can dirt jump and do tricks and are stylish in the air, they're not so keen on Goats Gully.
No, and like it's really fun to take people that don't necessarily ride technical trails and are they're downhill riders and professional free riders, but they don't do anything in the trees or in the woods. Maybe they be from the desert, or they just ride like Fest Series size jumps. Their bikes are set up super poorly, so it's always fun to tow people and take people down horrible trails, like the steepest, nastiest, ugliest thing you can imagine. And it's like, I enjoy it. Let's see if they enjoy it. And so I've had a few friends over the years that have come in and out of town, come and get absolutely humbled in Vancouver and in the bike park, and now they're back 6-7 years later, and all they want to do is ride the tech.
Oh, cool.
So that's a fun aspect of mountain biking, and it's really interesting to see how many people can be, how different pros can be. Like you can be jump guy, ground guy, tech guy, race guy. It's amazing how many avenues there are nowadays to be a professional mountain bike athlete or a TikToker.
What are some of the careers of mountain bikers that we might all know of that you admire?
I feel like a lot of the mountain bikers that I admire quit at a certain age. Like they got in and they did like some super core, like gnarly stuff, like Kenny
Smith.
Yeah. Kenny Smith did some crazy, crazy stuff and pushed the envelope for so long. And, he's retired from the freeride aspect of it. And like, that's what I knew him for. But now he's pushing envelopes in the backcountry with crazy overnight missions and multi-day trips. Like that stuff is super cool to me, to see people change it up and, go after a different thrill. There's a lot of people that are doing that, and a lot of people that aren't professional athletes that have these like mountain bike careers. And yeah, like Margus isn't a professional mountain biker, but he's been around since the start, and look at him go. Like he doesn't stop. Guys like I guess G Atherton is like a crazy one because he's literally done everything. Like he might be the most decorated mountain biker ever because what has he won? Like Hardline, Rampage, or podiums, all these events. Like super well-rounded individual. And then who else is there? There's so many. It's hard to choose. Like Wade and Thomas, like those guys still ride and do advertisements and stuff like that. And Jeff as well. Yeah, those guys that are, living regular lives as fathers and individuals outside of mountain biking, but still can keep a grasp and a grip on like a professional career. Like that's super admirable.
One of the things I was hoping to do before we came on was have a look at your posts on our bulletin board when you were at Grom, because I know you were definitely someone who was occasionally active on our boards.
Potentially, I don't know if I was.
No,
I don't think I didn't really spend any time on the forums, like at all. I knew they existed, but I don't think I was a poster. I know I had an account, and I might have said some stupid shit that I don't remember. So I'm curious to see if you can dig something up.
That's interesting. I'll have to go take a look.
Well, it's all open now, so like I dig sometimes and like do keyword searches and stuff and just try to find the most crazy stuff. And there's some gold in the forums, and especially your website and the old Pink Bike. Like I don't know, you might be able to end some careers with what's on there. It's unbelievable.
And there's some funny crossover between those two, between the guy who now runs Pink Bike.
Yeah, there's a pretty good photo of Brian out there that's on your website.
Oh, I'll have to dig that one up.
Yeah, it's bad.
Well, I know you're a busy guy up here at Crankworks, and I've taken up a lot of your time. Is there anything you'd like to add? Anybody you'd like to shout out, or just take the mic? And
I guess I want to always give a shout out to like people that build trails and continuously maintain them, and it's such a thankless job, and like I've benefited a lot, and people have skyrocketed and done great things with their careers over the years, but it's all due to people that are putting in work on the trails. May you be a legal builder, illegal builder, dirt jump builder, pump track builder, bike track builder, bike park builder. Like everything that gets built helps people benefit, and it changes people's lives. And I have the utmost respect for people that volunteer their time and sacrifice relationships with their families and their girlfriends and their loved ones because they want to get out there and play in the mud. Like that shit is so cool, and that's my big shout out. It's just the people that put the shovel in the dirt for us. It's fucking cool.
Nice. Well, thanks very much, Caleb, and look forward to crossing paths with you as often as possible and riding with you more on the shore and seeing how you progress.
See you at Parkgate.
See you at Parkgate.
Thanks,
Cheers.
Cam.
Thanks, Caleb.